Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Thursday, November 30th. If you are joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, see how they ultimately ended up turning out. Then after that, we'll go over to the injuries in play for today's slate. It's a 9-game main slate in total. And then last but not least, we'll go to both DraftKings and FanDuel, talk about my core picks for both sites. It's going to be one player at each position. So point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get into that recap of yesterday's picks. So yesterday was a pretty interesting day overall. A lot of hit or miss performances just in general across the board. So we'll start off on the DraftKings side. We had Derrick Rose at $4,400 at that point guard position, looking for 22 points out of him. Ultimately ended up starting this game and got to 32, so he was a hit. And then at the same time, said you could play Aaron Holiday at $4,100, starting in place of Fred VanVleet as well. Looking for 20 to 21 points out, got 20.25, so technically he was a hit as well. And for me, myself personally, a lot of my lineups and a lot of the ones that kind of did the best for me yesterday were the ones that I played both Derrick Rose and Aaron Holiday together and then kind of paid up for some other options. At shooting guard, we had Jaden Ivey. He was $5,700. We were looking for 28, 29 points out. Only got to 14.75. He was a mess. He got into very early foul trouble in this game against the Lakers. Only played 19 minutes, 1 for 6 shooting from the field. And the game ultimately did end up being a blowout, so just an unfortunate day for him overall. At small forward, we had Scotty Barnes at $8,700. Looking for 44 points out, got to 44.25, so he was ahead as well. Then we had Jaren Jackson Jr. at power forward, $7,400. Looking for 37 out, got to 42.25, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. And then last but not least, we had Walker Kessler at that center position. Was still not in that starting lineup, but at $5,900, looking for 29, 30 points out, got to 35.5, so he was a hit as well. So we had 4 out of 5 in terms of hits over on the DraftKings side yesterday, so pretty solid day over there. If you had some other decent plays to go alongside the core, had a pretty good chance of cashing just in general. And then on the FanDuel side, we had Aaron Holiday at the point guard position, $3,900, looking for 19, 20 points down, got to 20.1, so he was a hit. If you stay with Derrick Rose at $4,100, looking for 20 to 21 out of him, got to 31.3, so he was a hit as well. Then our shooting guard, we had Jaden Ivey once again, $5,800, looking for 29 out of him, only got to 14.7. Once again, he was a miss. Got into very, very early foul trouble, played 19 minutes, 1 for 6 from the field, and that game was a blowout. Small forward, we went with Kevin Huerter, and unfortunately, the Kings just do not know how to play on the second half of back-to-backs. They've been getting blown out, it seems like, every back-to-back. Not the greatest day for Huerter overall at $5,000. We were looking for 25 out of him. Got to 18.5. He was a mess. Only played 26 minutes in this game. 3 for 7 shooting from the field. Did ultimately end up being a little bit of a blowout as well. And then at power forward, we had Paolo Banchero, $7,700. We were looking for about 38 fantasy points out of him. It was a pretty favorable matchup against the Wizards. Unfortunately, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, and Cole Anthony all kind of went off and hogged the ball yesterday. So not the greatest day for Paolo Banchero overall. Got to 12.8 points. Was a pretty big miss for us. Only played 27 minutes, 2 for 8 shooting from the field. So not too much to be had there, especially with the way all those other guys were playing. It was just kind of unfortunate for us yesterday. And then last but not least, once again, we had Walker Kessler, $5,900. Looking for 29, 30 points out. Got to 41.6 on the FanDuel side, so he was a really good hit yesterday. Had 6 blocks and 1 steal, so that definitely pays off quite a bit on the FanDuel side overall. So in terms of FanDuel, was a really hit or miss day. Obviously, the kind of misses in the middle put us back a little bit there. So hopefully you guys were at least able to mix and match and at the very least break even on the day or make a little bit of a profit. But, a little bit rougher day on FanDuel, which is not something that I was expected since that was the site that I did like a little bit better, at least early on in the morning. But with that being said, we'll get moving over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play for tonight's slate overall. Once again, it is a 9-game main slate. We have 4 teams there on back-to-back, so I won't talk too much about those teams in terms of their injuries. We should have their injury reports coming out later today, probably around like 1:30 Eastern time for a lot of those teams, so I will have those injury updates down in the comments as well. We're going to start off with the Portland Trailblazers. They are without Anthony Simons and Ish Wainwright once again, so no changes there whatsoever. And then on the Cleveland Cavaliers side, Ty Jerome, Ricky Rubio, Dean Wade all out once again, so no changes there whatsoever for them as well. So pretty standard game to start off the night. Then we move over to the Pacers. Jalen Smith's out. He got hurt in their most recent game. TJ McConnell and Isaiah Jackson, both listed as questionable to play tonight. If Isaiah Jackson does not play tonight, we could see some increased minutes for Miles Turner in this game potentially. With no true backup center behind him, you probably get Obi Toppin at the 5 for a little bit in this game. They do have Oscar Tshiebwe as well as a rookie kind of two-way contract player, so maybe he gets a couple of minutes in this game if Jackson's unable to go, but nothing too major standing out from the Pacers overall. And then we get over to Miami Heat. RJ Hampton, Tyler Hero, both out once again. Jimmy Butler, Haywood Highsmith, both questionable to play. Both ultimately end up missing their most recent game. And then Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, both listed as probable and expected to play tonight. So Miami could be another spot where it looks pretty good, just depending on who's in, who's out for them once again. So definitely be sure you're watching out for that as the day moves along. For the Charlotte Hornets, we have LaMelo Ball, Cody Martin, Frank Ntilikina, and Nick Richards all out once again. And then Brandon Miller listed as questionable due to an ankle injury. We'll see whether or not he plays tonight or not. If he doesn't ultimately end up playing, we probably see Gordon Hayward move to the 2, Miles Bridges bump up to the 3, and PJ Washington ultimately end up starting at the 4 tonight. So could be a little bit of value opening up in that situation. Then for the Brooklyn Nets side, we have Noah Clowney and Ben Simmons both out once again tonight. Then we have Dennis Smith Jr., who's dealing with a back injury, listed as questionable to play once again tonight. They do get Cam Thomas back from his ankle injury. He is at least somewhat interesting, I believe, on FanDuel, where he was like $6,000. But he probably does have some type of minutes limit tonight, so not like majorly interested in him unless he ultimately ends up starting for tonight's game overall, which I do not assume to be the case. And then we'll move down to the Detroit Pistons. They're on the back-to-back, so probably same guys out as yesterday. We'll see if anybody else joins them. On the next side, we got Ryan Archer and Arachno. This is probable, but not really in the rotation either way, though. For the Milwaukee Bucks, Jay Crowder remains out, and then Pat Connaughton does join him. He got hurt in their most recent game. Chris Middleton's still going to be on kind of a hard minutes limit, especially after that Achilles soreness that he's been dealing with, where he left 2 games ago. So there's going to be a little bit of minutes to go around for guys like Marjon Beauchamp and Andre Jackson Jr., but I don't really expect too much out of them, at least for DFS purposes in this game. And then on the Chicago Bulls side, they have Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine. All this is questionable. If all 3 of these guys end up missing, going to be a really ugly night tonight for the Bulls. Vucevic would look kind of interesting at that point in time, but they probably just do get blown out. The Utah Jazz are on the back-to-back. We do know Lauri Markkanen's out once again. He did not join them on their road trip. And then on the Minnesota Timberwolves side, we got Clark, McDaniels, and McLaughlin all out once again. Anthony Edwards listed as doubtful after injuring his hip after taking a pretty hard fall the other day. So we'll see what this starting lineup looks like. They have Troy Brown listed here. I think Kyle Anderson's probably just going to start at 3 and they'll bump Nickeil Alexander-Walker over to the 2. That would be my most likely guess, but all 3 are going to be pretty viable on tonight's slate. You probably see a little bit of bump up for Mike Conley, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert tonight as well. Then we move over to the Atlanta Hawks, who are without Buffkin, Guy, and Johnson all out once again. Johnson obviously broke his wrist not too long ago, and we saw a bump up for Saddiq Bey and Bogdanovich once again. So those guys are both going to be live once again, as well as DeAndre Hunter, who's got solidified minutes at this point in time. And then on the opposite side of that game for the Spurs, Victor Wembanyama is listed as questionable tonight, dealing with some hip soreness. We'll see whether or not he ultimately plays or not. Could open up a little bit of value there. And then Jeremy Sohan listed as probable to play, dealing with a knee injury at this point in time. For the Lakers, they are on the back-to-back. We'll see if any other news comes out throughout the day. We'll see whether or not like LeBron James or Anthony Davis rest. Jackson Hayes did get injured last night, so he's going to be at least questionable at the very least today. Oklahoma City Thunder on the opposite side look all the way healthy at this point in time. Moving on to the Clippers, who are on the back-to-back as well. Norman Powell did get banged up in their game last night. We'll see whether or not he's able to go tonight, and we'll see whether or not any of their big-name players ultimately end up resting tonight as well. And then on the opposite side for the Golden State Warriors, Usman Garuba, Chris Paul, and Gary Payton II are all out tonight. Nothing too crazy there, just solidifies the minutes for their starters overall. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. As always, I will be listing all the injury updates as they do come out throughout the day down in the comments below, as well as the starting lineups throughout the night. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Jalen Brunson, $8,400, looking for 42 points now. I'm averaging 39 so far on the season, going against the Detroit Pistons, who have allowed the most real-life points to opposing point guards. Obviously, we saw it pan out pretty well last night for D'Angelo Russell, so probably going to be a case once again for Jalen Brunson tonight. Do have him currently projected for 41, 42 points. Has a really strong upside for more, especially if he's going out there and he's shooting the ball well once again tonight. Then at shooting guard, we're going to go back to Jaden Ivey tonight. He's $6,200 now, so we're looking for 31 points now. I'm currently having projected for 30 to 31 won tonight. I think it should be a reasonably competitive game against the Knicks here, but at the same time, you never really know with this Pistons team just in general. So I like the upside that Ivy has. He didn't play a lot of minutes last night, so on the back-to-back, not too worried from that regard. And probably a lot of people aren't going to be playing him tonight just because he burned him last night with those couple early fouls that really ended up hurting him overall. And then at small forward, we're going to go Kyle Anderson. I think he ultimately ends up getting the start tonight, $4,500. Looking for 22, 23 points out. I'm a guy that can do just a little bit of everything. And it's a good spot tonight against the Utah Jazz, who are not very formidable on the defensive end of the ball. So currently have him projected for 24, 25 points. Has a little bit upside for more, especially if he goes out and plays big minutes tonight. And then at power forward, we're going to go with Sadiq Bey, just kind of value option here at $5,500. No Jalen Johnson once again, obviously. Looking for 27, 28 points out. I'm currently projected for 28, 29 tonight. If he's out there, if he's playing well, it's a pace-up spot versus the Spurs. This is probably going to be a pretty back-and-forth, high-scoring game. And then last but not least, we're going to go with the Visa Zubac at $5,500. Looking for 27, 28 points out. And I currently have him projected for 29, 30 points tonight. Golden State, typically wasn't the greatest matchup for him, but Golden State's playing a little bit bigger at this point in time. They're playing more big men out there. So it looks like a little bit better matchup for Zubac just in general. If any of the big 3 or 4 for the Clippers ultimately end up missing 4 tonight just in general, could help him out a little bit as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $19,900 remaining, just over $6,600 per player. So looking a little bit more like a balanced build at this point in time. Obviously, there are going to be some values that do ultimately end up popping up throughout the day, which will allow us to get to some higher priced players as well. So definitely explore those options as they do open up. But this is kind of what I do have, at least initially, for the core to start off the day. But with that being said, we're going to move over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So on the FanDuel side, we're going to start off with point guard Mike Conley. There is no Anthony Edwards tonight, so a couple extra assist opportunities potentially for him since Anthony Edwards has been taking on a little bit more of that role. Obviously, there's more usage just to go around in general. Mike Conley, is a former member of the Utah Jazz, so if you are into that revenge game narrative whatsoever, you can definitely play him because of that reason. Personally, I don't think it's an extra added factor for him tonight. Obviously, he's a veteran. He's a good player just in general. And he's $5,300, looking for 26, 27 points out. Currently, I'm projected for 28, 29 tonight. Just looks like a solid value overall. A guy that we probably want to be playing in cash unless something else majorly opens up throughout the day. Then at shooting guard, we're going to go to Klay Thompson once again. Going against Clippers tonight. Obviously, it's a Clippers team that is on the back-to-back, so they could be a little bit tired at this point in time. Maybe some of those guys ultimately end up resting. Klay Thompson starting to find his shooting stroke as of late. $5,800, looking for 29 points out. I'm currently having projected for 29, 30 tonight. Only averaging 24 on the season. Like I said, a little bit slower to start for him shooting-wise, but he's really started to come on in recent games, and obviously capping that off with the best game of the season so far in his most recent game. And then at small forward, we're going to go with Simone Fontecchio for the Utah Jazz. Once again, no Lauri Markkanen, so Fontecchio should be in that starting lineup once again. $4,200, only looking for 21 points out. Obviously, if you look on the averages on the season, most of that's been coming off the bench. But since he's been in that starting lineup, he's played decent-sized minutes. He's played relatively well at that. Currently having projected for 23 points tonight. Has a little bit upside for more, obviously could have a little bit downside for less at the same time, but it looks like a really good cheap value option on the FanDuel side, at least to start off the day. Then we're going to move down to power forward with DeAndre Hunter here. There's a lot of guys in this price range where if you want to play him, you want to play PJ Washington, Draymond Green. If you want to play anybody from that mid 5K range to low 6K range, they all kind of look like the same plays just in general today. It is a good spot versus the Spurs for him tonight. Obviously with no Jalen Johnson out there is a little bit more stability to his minutes just in general. You're looking for 27, 28 points out. I'm projected for 28, 29 tonight. Has a little bit upside for more. In this matchup against the Spurs, could have a little bit of downside for less at the same time as well. Since he's not the greatest scorer in the world, he doesn't contribute a lot in terms of like assists. He helps out in rebounds sometimes, helps out in steals and blocks. So more of a defender, but if he's out there and he's shooting the ball well, going to look like a really good play overall tonight. Then last but not least, we're going to center Mark Williams, $6,400, looking for 32 points out. That's what he's averaging so far in the season. Goes against Brooklyn, should be a pretty favorable matchup there. As long as he stays out of foul trouble, he's going to look like a solid play overall tonight. Currently having projected for 33 points, has a ton of upside for more as we've seen in games this year where he's been going out and getting like 15 point, 15 rebound games, a couple blocks to add on top of it. Really solid performer, does give us some pretty strong upside at that center position overall today. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed listed here, only about $32,800 remaining, $8,200 per player. So at this point in time, with the 5 guys that I do have there, you can definitely pay up across the board if you want to do so. If you kind of want to take a little bit more balanced approach, pay for a lot of guys right around that $8,200 price range, that's definitely an option on tonight's slate as well. Definitely get creative with it. FanDuel looks pretty good at this point in time. DraftKings looks a little bit tighter, but there should be some values that do open up just across the board in general on both sites overall today. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, November 30th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I do ask that you note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then as always, I will be listing all the injury updates as well as starting lineups throughout the night down in the comments below. Definitely make sure that you are checking up down there as the day moves along as we get closer to lock, just so you have all that information headed into lock. And then with that being said, I'll leave my updated core down there as well, 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock as a pinned comment. Sometimes I've been dropping a little bit earlier, but if there's any changes after that point in time, I will be leaving a reply to that comment as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core pick videos. And then once a week, I do my NFL DFS player pool video that typically comes out either Saturday morning or early afternoon. So definitely be looking out for that as well if that's something you're into, as well as my NFL DFS cheat sheets on the sports affiliation website for both FanDuel and DraftKings. And then last but not least, if you are interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Price Picks. If you are a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, when you make your initial deposit, you will get a first time deposit match bonus, which on Parlay Play and Price Picks is going to be up to $100. On BetUS, that's going to be up to 125% of your initial deposit, I believe up to $2,500. So definitely a great way to get started on those sites. Helps you out as you start your sports betting, your prop betting journey. Helps me out a little bit on the side as well. And then if you have any specific questions related to sports betting, prop betting whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have at this point in time. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning into this video. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.